Yesterday, two Palestinian Arab terrorists pulled up to a gas station here in Samaria and opened fire, murdering 4 and injuring 5 other innocent Israelis. The U.S. administration's response was at best apathetic, and CNN wrote an article desperately trying to justify the murderers. I'm Justin, and this is the Israel Guys. Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of Jew hatred and anti-Israel propaganda, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Welcome back to the show, guys. Good to be back with you today. Sadly, I'm bringing you sad news from the heartland of Israel, from Judea and Samaria here. There was a terror attack yesterday. This was one of the worst terror attacks that has happened in a long time, but 4 Israelis were murdered at the gas station in Eli. Now, Eli is about 20 to 30 minutes from here where we are on the Mount of Blessing. We drive by all the time, right next to the gas station is is right on the side of the road, so we drive by there all the time. Every time we want to go to Jerusalem or someplace else, we drive right close to there. So it really hits close to home here. There's a gas station, then there's like a restaurant right next to it over there. So according to the IDF, 2 terrorists approached the gas station in a vehicle, and they opened fire, moderately injuring a security guard, and then the terrorist opened fire at a restaurant and shot a further 5 people. You can hear in this video right here the gunshots being fired. It's pretty crazy. So sadly, 4 Israelis were killed, and there were like 4 or 5 others that were injured. A civilian on the scene was actually the one who shot and neutralized the first terrorist there at the gas station. So one of the terrorists was neutralized immediately there at the gas station. The other one escaped the town of Eli, right where the terror attack happened. It was put on lockdown while the terrorist was on the loose. A helicopter was dispatched to the scene. An alarm was set off in Eli. It was pretty crazy. You can see in this video right here, or you can hear the alarm going off and them announcing for people to go inside their houses and to stay inside their houses until they catch the second terrorist. So security forces found the second terrorist about 2 hours later and were able to neutralize him. Hamas claimed the 2 terrorists who had both spent time in Israeli prisons before. Crazy, they had spent time in Israeli prisons, they'd gotten out, and then they went and committed this horrific terror attack. Guys, we're not going to say the names of the terrorists. They don't deserve any kind of credit, and they don't even need anything else said about them, so that's all that we're going to say. However, we will say the names of the 4 victims who were murdered. One was identified as Harel Massoud, a 21-year-old resident of Yad Binyamin. Another was named as Elisha Antman, a 17-year-old resident of Eli. A third was identified as Ofer Fairman, a 60-year-old resident of Eli. And the 4th was Nachman Shmuel Mordaf, a 17-year-old resident of Achia. One of the injured Israelis, actually, Matanya Olami, he was the one who actually shot the first terrorist, but he was injured by the terrorist. He is the son of Rabbi Ami Olami, who was murdered in a terror attack nearly 30 years ago. Now, I want to say something right now. I know we might sound repetitive, but these innocent people were killed for one reason only. The mainstream media, Hamas, is trying to say, oh no, it's retaliation for Israel's raid into Jenin yesterday, or it was brought upon by the oppression, by the occupation forces. They were desperate. That's all they could do. No, these people were killed for one reason only. They were killed because they were Jews who were daring to live in the land promised to them by God. Guys, that's just the reality on the ground. This was a horrible terror attack, as I said before, one of the worst terror attacks that has happened in a long time. So continue to pray for the injured, that they would recover, that they would all get better. Also for the victims' families. 4 families shattered yesterday. and they will never be the same. So continue to pray for their families. Likud MK, Danny Danon, and also the National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, they both called for a major military operation in Judea and Samaria. Danny Danon said this, quote, "We demand a military operation in Judea and Samaria now, not later. Now is the time to strike hard and fast. I call on our Prime Minister to order a large-scale military operation and immediately reinstate the security barriers that were removed. The people of Israel are united and support the government, the army, and our internal security services in the realization of this urgent program, which will save countless lives." Ben-Gvir said this, quote, "I call on the Prime Minister and on Defense Minister Gallant. As I said before the operation in Gaza, the time has come for a military operation in Judea and Samaria. Yes, a return to targeted eliminations from the air, take down buildings, set up roadblocks, deport terrorists, and pass the death penalty law for terrorists in the second and third readings." This right here, this statement that Itamar Ben-Gvir said might sound crazy to people, but it should be common sense. Like, deport terrorists, pass the death penalty law on terrorists. We need to discourage terrorism as much as possible. Yes, return to targeted eliminations, take out the terrorists, go do preemptive strikes before the terror attacks happen. Guys, we're going to talk about what the mainstream media and the international community sadly had to say about the terror attack. But first, make sure to subscribe. Guys, we need to get this content out to as many people as possible. So if you would do your part, hit subscribe. Also, like and share our content so we can reach millions with the truth of what is happening here in Israel. Also, go check out our other social media pages. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, also on Rumble. So go give us a follow there. We would very much appreciate it. So I want to sort of make a comparison here. As you know, there was a gun battle in Jenin the other day, and it seems the whole international community and the mainstream media were all up in arms about this battle, about how the occupation forces were going into Jenin. There were Israeli snipers firing at journalists, and when it came to the terror attack yesterday, sadly, a lot of the mainstream media, the international community, was either silent or just apathetic. I want to get into the U.S. administration response, the Biden administration's response. So the U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said this in a statement. "The United States condemns the terrorist attack against Israelis near Eli in the West Bank today. We express our deepest condolences to the families of those killed and wish the injured a speedy recovery." Okay, great. They expressed their condolences. But then he added this. "We're also concerned about the continuation of violence in Israel and the West Bank in recent weeks that has killed and injured Palestinian and Israeli civilians. We will continue to work with Israel and the Palestinian Authority to promote steps toward de-escalation." I don't know if it's just me, but it seems like the whole Biden administration is they're just like stuck on repeat. They're always saying the exact same things. They're always saying, we're concerned about the escalation of violence. All sides need to de-escalate. We need to calm the tensions. There's not two sides here, guys. The Biden administration, they need to condemn the Palestinian terrorists who are murdering innocent Jews living in their homeland. They need to call them terrorists. They also need to support Israel's full right to defend themselves, even if that involves going into Palestinian towns to take out terrorists, which the U.S. does not support. That was part of the tensions that they were talking about the violence that needs to de-escalate, was, in fact, Israel going into a terrorist hotbed to take out terrorists. Also, the Biden administration needs to stop sending millions of tax dollars to the Palestinian Authority that is going straight into the pockets of terrorists. While they're condemning these terrorist attacks, but they're also sending money to the Palestinian Authority, to terrorists, which is completely illegal with the Taylor Force Act. If you thought that wasn't bad enough, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Thomas Nance, he probably had the worst response of all. He said this on Twitter. He said, quote, "Deeply concerned about the civilian deaths and injuries that have occurred in the West Bank these past 48 hours, including that of minors. Praying for the families as they mourn the loss of loved ones or tend to those injured." Like, Did you hear that right? He's essentially saying that the terror attack at the LA gas station and the IDF raid into Jenin were similar events. That, oh, there's just a bunch of violence happening on either side and it all needs to stop. And, he's sending condolences for anybody who was injured, whether that was a terrorist or whether that was an IDF soldier or whether that was an innocent civilian. That is absolutely ridiculous. And several people called him out on this. Thankfully, the Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Michael Herzog, he made this statement. He said, quote, "Today, yet another heinous Palestinian terror attack claimed the lives of 4 innocent Israeli civilians. There's no justification whatever for the targeting and killing of innocent civilians. It must be unequivocally condemned. Any attempt of a so-called balanced condemnation is misguided and disrespectful to the memory of the victims." Absolutely, he's 100% right. Following the criticism, Thomas Knight, he did issue a new tweet, sort of apologizing, sort of not really. He said, quote, "I condemn in the strongest terms the senseless murder of 4 innocent Israelis. Today, my heart is with their grieving family members." Guys, continue to pray and remember for the victims. Our friends at Blessed by Israel ship the beautiful products of small businesses and families from Israel's heartland to people all around the world. You can now buy the wonderful taste, smells, and goodness of the Promised Land. Check out the amazing extra virgin olive oil, savory spices, cosmetics, hand creams, soaps, lotions, chocolate, coffee, and much more. The best part about this is that at the same time as you enjoy the goodness of the land of Israel, you're also blessing the faithful pioneers who are restoring and rebuilding Judea and Samaria. That's right, your purchases are an effective way to contribute to the strengthening of Israel. So head over to blessedbyisrael.com, that's blessedbyisrael.com, to buy the wonderful products of Israel's heartland and support the pioneers of Judea and Samaria. Again, that is blessedbyisrael.com. The link will be in the description below. So I saw this article on CNN that I thought was just absolutely ridiculous, just crazy article that I want to go through. I want to show you just how twisted and warped CNN are talking about the terror attack yesterday. The article started out with this: 4 people were killed and 4 more were wounded in shootings near the settlement of Eli in the West Bank, Israeli authorities and emergency services said Tuesday. It was the deadliest attack on Israelis since January, CNN records show. Okay, just putting the facts there, first of all. But then it says, one of the suspected gunmen was killed at the scene by a civilian, and the second was killed by Israel Defense Forces and Israel Security Agency forces after they tracked down the car he was traveling in, the agency said in a joint statement. Did you hear that correctly? CNN called the terrorist a suspected gunman, and he was killed by an Israeli civilian. He wasn't a terrorist that just murdered 4 people. It was a suspected gunman. Just suspected. He didn't even commit any attack. But then it gets worse. They said Hamas, the Palestinian militant movement, claimed the 2 gunmen as members, calling the attack a natural response to the Israeli raid on Jenin a day earlier that left 6 Palestinians dead. The shooting attack began in a restaurant near a gas station where 2 gunmen shot dead 3 civilians, said Moti Buchkin, a spokesman for the Zaka Rescue Service. So in a way here, CNN is almost agreeing with Hamas by quoting Hamas as saying that the attack was a natural response to the horrific attack by the occupation forces on Jenin. And then later in the article, we move on, they again said, Hamas later claimed the gunmen as members and said they were acting in response to a huge firefight in Jenin on Monday. There, they said it again. They're acting in response to the firefight in Jenin. And then they go into details about the terrorists, their age and where they were from. They said, quote, videos from his home village showed a funeral procession and burial for him shortly after he was tracked down and killed by the IDF in Shin Bet. Photographs on social media suggested that the 2 were friends. Yes, guys, we're talking about the terrorists here. They're not talking about the victims. They were talking about the 2 terrorists who were taken out. And then for the 3rd time, they say once again, Quote, the shooting came as a natural response to the Jenin massacre yesterday, the militant group said. So they said for the third time, the attack was in response to the Jenin massacre. Oh, the militant group said that, not the terrorist group. They called Hamas a militant group, maybe a sort of resistance organization or something. Not a terrorist organization. This is just a militant group. The article goes on to say, quote, there are now fears of attacks by settlers against Palestinians in revenge for Tuesday's shooting. No, they're not. That's a lie. The Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates Tuesday called for, quote, urgent and genuine international intervention, particularly from the United States, to prevent escalating attacks. It warned of a planned explosion by extremist elements, referring to Israeli settlers. The latest violence comes a day after an Israeli military raid in the city of Jenin killed 6 Palestinians, including 3 militants, and injured 90 others. 8 Israeli military personnel were injured in the incursion to arrest 2 wanted Palestinian suspects. So there, they said it again. The latest violence comes a day after an Israeli military raid in the city of Jenin. Like they're trying to lump these 2 different incidents together. Guys, we don't have time to get into the rest of this article here, but I encourage you to go check it out. See how insane this article is from CNN. We'll link it down in the description below. Guys, in conclusion, I have a message for the U.S. administration. Stop being apathetic about Israelis being murdered and support Israel's full right to defend themselves. Also, for CNN, I have 2 words for you. Stop it. Stop trying to justify the murder of innocent Jews in their homeland, as your article is showing. Guys, make sure to check out the beautiful products of Judea and Samaria. Go to blessedbyisrael.com or click the link in the description below. Subscribe, get the conversation going down below. Voice your support for Israel in the comments. Voice your support for Israel, for Israel's right to defend themselves. And as always, tune out the fake news and tune into what is actually happening here in the land of Israel. We'll be back every day, Monday through Friday, with your direct connection to the land and people of Israel.